This will be Wednesday, April 13th, regular class as we get farther into chapter 1 and hopefully get a chance to finally finish it. Let's see from before. That's not you guys, that's the other class. Ignore the part where it says book report checkpoint is today. That's the advanced class, not you guys. Not sure why that was up there. But camp info will be tomorrow. And make sure you guys turn in your camp stuff page.
Okay, so I have a joke for you.
Nope.
Okay.
I have to see it.
Nope. All right.
No, it's actually
And
really
going
good.
on from there. Once again, it starts off with Paul Newman and the fact that he was the one that, wait, who's the main character in the story?
Pony
Boy wants to be like Paul Newman, who was the voice of the guy from Cars. Then Newman's own salad dressing. Who is it that's in the red Corvair? Socias. And what do they try to do to Pony Boy? They try to cut his hair. And that's why kids should not be barbers, because they're not very good at it. And then,
It's the Yoshis.
who is it that wears the madras?
Pony Boy.
That's where the socias come in, because they try to do that. Then the greasers and the socias with their outfits. And then the dairy and his cowlick with the hair that sticks up from there.
I got mine.
That was Soda Pop with the cocked eyebrow and he teases dairy. Who is it that tries to steal the hubcaps?
Soda pop.
No.
Close.
Steve.
Yeah, his friend Steve. That's the guy's name, Steve.
Steve. They have so much unusual names, and then it's just Steve and Daryl.
And then we got to the part where it's introducing Two-Bit, who is like Will Rogers. And if you have your iPad, you can use it to get the answers to help you write down. Oh, or you can use that. That would also work. I have one other thing for you before I get farther into the story. I forgot to do it yesterday, which was when the red Corvair, when the socias get out and they're attempting to cut Pony Boy's hair, he mentions he can smell two things when they're in the process of getting ready. What two things does he smell? Old leather shaving lotion, which is one.
Stale tobacco.
And stale tobacco. He's like, that was all I could smell when they were on top of me. I brought in, not stale tobacco. You're going to have to use your own cigarettes for that. I brought in, Mr. Brovicast, not at school, exactly. But I did bring in shaving lotion, which is basically just cologne, which they call shaving lotion. And so this was what I went out and dropped $11.99 at CVS on my English leather. But I figured I'm going to let you go around, I'll come around so you can smell. I put it on some, what do you call those things? Cotton balls. This is what he is smelling when they're in the process of trying to cut his hair. So put your nose in there and imagine that this and tobacco is all that you can smell during the haircut.
I know. Does it smell good?
Hold on.
I smell it every
I
day.
want you to try and steal it or eat one.
Can I eat one?
Do we have this one?
Yeah, you just pop it right in your mouth.
It smells like my grandpa.
Oh, really? I can, like, I mean, I will.
And so like Mr. Rogers' room?
Well, I got
It like, that smells really good.
It smells
like
like
this
tacos.
smell really good.
It
That
smells like
tacos.
tacos.
Wait,
you say it smells like tacos.
Okay.
I
just smell weird.
You said it smells like tacos.
It
It smells like tacos.
Are you trying to eat? Are you trying to eat tacos from Burger King?
I don't understand. That's really strong. It smells like my grandpa.
It's
Lucky. Isn't that so? I think that's I told you. Wait, Ainsley. Doesn't your taco smell? Yeah, like watery.
Smell at home. Ooh, smells good.
It smells like the doctor
When you smell it, to help you out, I often get told it smells like old person. And the reason it smells like old person is, bring it down. If you have grandparents, oftentimes this is what a grandpa will wear, or if you hang out with old people. Because this was the axe from 50 years ago, so which is when your grandparents were alive. 50 years from now, when you're a grandparent, kids will smell axe and go, oh, that smells like grandpa. Because you'll probably still be wearing it and taking your axe bath every day, and they'll be laughing at you. So it's sort of the same idea. So now you have an idea of what it was he was smelling when they were in the course of it. It was a cologne. I mean, they wore it because they thought the ladies dug it. If the ladies, I don't know, ladies are special.
No ladies dig it.
But dudes seem to think they do because they're special.
That's pretty good.
We stopped on page 10. Page 10, halfway down. Quickly?
Yeah. Why does it have like a fake
Well,
then.
then.
It smells like taco.
Right. Halfway down page 10.
What are you guys eating?
Halfway down.
If I had to pick the real character of the gang, it would be Dallas Winston. Dally. I used to like to draw his picture when he was in a dangerous mood, for then I could get his personality down in a few lines. He had an elfish face with high cheekbones and a pointed chin, small, sharp animal teeth, and ears like a lynx. His hair was almost white, it was so blonde, and he didn't like haircuts, or hair oil either. So it fell over his forehead in wisps and kicked out the back in tufts and curled behind his ears along the nape of his neck. His eyes were blue, blazing ice, cold with a hatred of the whole world. Dally had spent 3 years on the wild side of New York and been arrested at the age of 10. He was tougher than the rest of us. Tougher, colder, meaner. The shade of difference that separates a greaser from a hood wasn't present in Dally. He was as wild as the boys in the downtown outfits, like Tim Shepard's gang. In New York, Dally blew off steam in gang fights. But here, organized gangs are rarities. They were just small bunches of friends who stick together. And the warfare is between the social classes. A rumble, when it's called, is usually just born of a grudge fight. And the opponents just happen to bring their friends along. Oh, I mean, there's a few named gangs around, like the River Kings and the Tiber Street Tigers. But here in the Southwest, there's no gang rivalry. So Dally, even though he could get into a good fight sometimes, had no specific thing to hate. No rival gang, only socias. And you can't win against them, no matter how hard you try. Because they've got all the breaks, and even whipping them isn't going to change that fact. Maybe that's why Dallas was so bitter. He had quite a reputation. They have a file on him down at the police station. He'd been arrested. He got drunk. He rode in rodeos, lied, cheated, stole, rolled drunks, jumped small kids. He did everything. And I didn't like him, but he was smart. You had to respect him. Excuse me. I don't know about the respecting him thing. 2 things I mentioned about Dally. One, as we get into it, with the Dally and the dairy, if you're trying to remember the difference between them, remember that dairy has 2 R's in it, and brother has 2 R's in it. So dairy, brother. Dally has an L in it. Loser has an L in it, because Dally's a loser. To support that, him being a loser, they talk about some of the things he does for fun. One, they talk about jumping people. That's what Dally likes to do. Jumping is not the same as beating someone up. Beating someone up is like you and that other person, you're like, throw down, you start punching each other. Jumping someone is when you surprise them and you jump out from behind something when they walk by and you hit them with something, and you knock them down, and then you kick them when they're on the ground. Usually done with you and several friends. So you outnumber them and kick them while they're on the ground, laughing the entire time because you're a horrible person. Yay, thank you. Specifically, who is it that Dally jumps? Small children. So not only does he not do fair fights, he does not fair fights against small kids. So once again, not a good person. And then it says he rolls drunks. Rolling a drunk is a way of mugging someone when you rob them. But when you roll a drunk, you go to a party and you wait for someone to have so much alcohol they pass out and hit the ground. Then you walk over to them and you grab them and you roll them over and then take their wallet. So that's what Dally does. So that's how he goes around and gets his money, is by robbing and stealing from other people. Which is different from putting your feet on top of a desk in the slow kid section and just getting rid of your points. Johnny Cave was last and least. If you can picture a little dark puppy that's been kicked too many times and is lost in a crowd of strangers, you'll have Johnny. He was the youngest, next to me, smaller than the rest, and a slight build. He had big black eyes and a dark tanned face. His hair was jet black and heavily greased and combed to the side. But it was so long that it fell in shaggy bangs across his forehead. He had a nervous, suspicious look in his eyes. And that beating he got from the socias didn't help matters. He was the gang's pet, everyone's kid brother. His father was always beating him up, and his mother ignored him, except when she was hacked off at something. And then you could hear her yelling at him clear down at our house. I think he hated that worse than getting whipped. He would have run away 1,000,000 times if we hadn't been there. If it hadn't been for the gang, Johnny would never have known what love and affection are. I wiped my eyes hurriedly. Did you catch him? No, they got away this time, the dirty. Two-Bit went on cheerfully, calling the socials every name he could think of or just make up. Kids okay? I'm okay. I try to think of something to say. I'm usually pretty quiet around people, even the gang. I changed the subject. I didn't know you were out of the cooler yet, Dally. Good behavior. Got off early. Besides the thing you put drinks in, do you guys know what a cooler is?
Yeah.
What is it?
A jail?
Yeah, he was in jail because apparently Dally makes poor choices. Dallas lit a cigarette and handed it to Johnny. Everyone sat down to have a smoke and relax. A smoke always lessens the tension. I'd quit trembling and my color was back. The cigarette was calming me down. Two-Bit cocked an eyebrow. It's a nice-looking bruise you got there, kid. I touched my cheek gingerly. Really? Two-Bit nodded sagely. It's a nice cut, too. Makes you look tough. Now, tough and tough, two different words. Tough is the same as rough. Tough means cool, sharp, like a tough-looking Mustang or a tough record. In our neighborhood, both are compliments. Steve flicked his ashes at me. What were you doing walking by your lonesome? Leave it to good old Steve to bring up something like that. I was coming home from the movies. I didn't think... You don't ever think, Derry broke in. Not at home or anywhere when it counts. You must think at school with all those good grades you bring home, and you've always got your nose in a book, but do you ever use your head for common sense? No siree, bub. If you did have to go by yourself, you should have carried a blade. I just stared at the hole in the center of in the toe of my tennis shoe. Me and Derry just didn't dig each other. I never could please him. He would have hollered at me for carrying a blade if I had carried one. If I brought home B's, he wanted A's. If I got A's, he wanted to make sure they stayed A's. If I was playing football, I should be in studying. And if I was reading, I should be out playing football. He never hollered at Soda Pop. Not even when Soda dropped out of school or got tickets for speeding. He just hollered at me. Soda was glaring at him. Leave my kid brother alone, you hear? It ain't his fault the socials like to jump us. And if he had been carrying a blade, it would have been a good excuse to cut him to ribbons. Soda always takes up for me. Derry said impatiently, when I want my kid brother to tell me what to do with my other kid brother, I'll ask you, kid brother. Buddy laid off me. He always does when Soda Pop tells him to, most of the time. Next time, get any one of us to go with you, Pony Boy, Two-Bit said. Any of us will. Speaking of movies, Dally yawned, flipping away his cigarette butt. I'm walking over to the Nightly Double tomorrow night. Anybody want to come and hunt some action? The Nightly Double is an outdoor drive-in movie theater, which we'll talk about more in a moment. Steve shook his head. Me and Soda are picking up Evie and Sandy for the game. He didn't need to look at me the way he did right then. I wasn't going to ask if I could come. I mean, I'd never tell Soda because he really likes Steve a lot. Sometimes I can't stand Steve Randall. I mean it. Sometimes I hate him. Derry sighed, just like I knew he would. Derry never had time to do anything anymore. Now I'm working tomorrow night. Dally looked at the rest of us. Well, how about y'all? Two-Bit? Johnny Cake? You and Pony want to come? Me and Johnny will come, I said. I knew Johnny wouldn't open his mouth unless he was forced to. Is that okay, Derry? Yes, it's the end of school night. Derry was real good about letting me go places on the weekends. On school nights, I could hardly leave the house. I was planning on getting boozed up tomorrow night, Two-Bit said. If I don't, I'll walk over and find y'all. Steve was looking at Dally's hand. His ring, which he'd rolled a drunk senior to get, was back on his finger. Did you break up with Sylvia again? Yeah, and this time it's for good. That little broad was two-timing me again while I was in jail. I thought of Sylvia and Evie and Sandy and Two-Bit's mini blondes. They were the only kind of girls that would look at us, I thought. Tough, loud girls who wore too much eye makeup and giggled and swore too much. I liked Soda's girl Sandy just fine, though. Her hair was natural blonde, and her laugh was soft, like her china blue eyes. She didn't have a real good home or anything. It was our kind, greaser, but she was a real nice girl. Still, lots of times I wondered what other girls were like. The girls who were bright-eyed, and had their dresses a decent length, and acted as if they liked to spit on us if given a chance. Some were afraid of us, and remembering Dallas Winston, I didn't blame them. But most looked at us like we were dirt, gave us the same kind of look that the Socias did when they came by in their Mustangs and Corvairs and yelled, "Grease!" at us. I wondered about them. The girls, I mean. Did they cry when their boys were arrested, like Evie did when Steve got hauled in? Or they run out on them, the way Sylvia did Dallas? maybe their boys didn't get arrested or beaten up or busted up in rodeos. I was still thinking about it while I was doing my homework that night. I had to read Great Expectations for English, and that kid Pip, he reminded me of us. The way he felt marked lousy because he wasn't a gentleman or anything. And the way that girl kept looking down on him, that happened to me once. One time in biology, I had to dissect a worm and the razor wouldn't cut, so I used my switchblade. The minute I flicked it out, I forgot what I was doing, or I never would have done it. This girl right beside me kind of gasped and said, "They're right, you are a hood." Well, that didn't make me feel so hot. There were a lot of socias in that class. I get put into A classes because I'm supposed to be smart, and most of them thought it was pretty funny. I didn't, though. She was a cute girl. She looked real good in yellow. We deserve a lot of our trouble, thought. I mean, Dallas deserves everything he gets, and should get worse if you want the truth. And 2-Bit, he doesn't really want or need half the things he swipes from stores. He just thinks it's fun to swipe everything that isn't nailed down. I can understand why Soda Pop and Steve get into drag races and fight so much, though. Both of them have too much energy, too much feeling, no way to blow it off. To pause real quick, it brings up the switchblade, because they're going to mention that multiple times throughout the story. You guys know what a switchblade is.
Yeah, it's very like ding, and then.
Yeah. Let's show you guys an example of one. I brought.
Oh my
Just kidding,
God.
it's
Yeah.
fake.
Oh.
I'm gonna stab a child. Makes it fun. You're not dead. What if you? The way it works with the switchblade, in case you've never played around with one to stab a child, or whatever you do on the weekends, the way it works is it has the blade or the handle, and there's a little button on the side that pops the blade out. And that way, when it's time to cut someone, you hit the little button, and the blade comes out, and you go over and do whatever stabbing you need to do. You're looking kind of flinchy now. Whatever stabbing you need to do, and then you hit a little button, and it goes, whoosh, and it goes back in. For the most part, they're illegal now, because there's no point to have a switchblade unless you just need to go stab people. And apparently, the police frown on that. So switchblades, they're illegal to, I think, own, but you can't sell them, or I don't know. I don't go out and buy illegal blades very often. But that's what the switchblade is. There's also a different kind of switchblade that you can get.
Zavari is like,
I'm not going to stab another child. Because the problem with this
why do you bring up the real
is that if you kept this in your pocket, which is where guys would keep them, and guys tend to be what we call idiots, when they horse around with each other and you go up and ninja kick your friend, you would hit the release button, like, ninja kick. Because it was going to stab you in the leg and you'd fall down. So they came up with a different kind of one. And this one's called a rainbow blade. And it's called a rainbow blade because instead of shooting straight out the end, it shoots around like this. Boo.
It's a cone. That was a cone. Okay, it is a cone.
And so that way, if it's in your pocket when you hit the button, instead of shooting this way, it goes whew. And if it's in your pocket when that happens, it just gets caught and doesn't end up stabbing you, making things much, much better. Once again, it's I didn't want to stab another child. So that gives you an idea. And then I have kids who bring up, Mr. Brovicast, what about the ones that go all flippy around?
Oh my God.
There's
But
one's
why do
called
you have these?
butterfly knife.
Because we're reading
Okay, no, I like butterfly knives.
The butterfly knife is not automatic and not on a spring. It's the one you see in the movies, like woo, like that, and they do the stabbing.
Yeah, start doing two.
No,
Yes.
wait.
Just for opening your pop bottles when you need to. But the way this one works is it keeps the blade inside of the two handles, and it's called a butterfly knife because when you open it, you can flip it around, it makes it all fancy, and then you can do whatever stabbing whenever you're needing to stab a person, and then you can flip it around like that again and have a little close
How
on
do
it.
you do that?
He's been practicing.
Practicing.
Yeah.
Actually, it's really easy. You take it like this, and you go this way, that way. But it looks really fancy. You're like, you want to throw it out? Like that, stabby. Back then, like, oh, I was so confused while you stabbed me. So those are the different types of knives that they have in the story.
So can't you keep those there?
Yes, those fake things. Yes, I'm allowed to keep fake objects that can't hurt a child. You are correct. Right there next to my big pile of pillows. I could. I probably hurt Paige on the inside.
Could we technically have a fake knife?
From there, we're going to stop for today. We'll get back to more of the reading tomorrow. If you do not want to keep your book because you feel that you are irresponsible, put it back on my desk. And then tomorrow, you'll just give me a shoe, and then I'll give you a book in exchange.